Hello everyone, my name is Abdulhadi Jfri. I'm a Canadian and American board certified dermatologist, and I'm currently doing my fellowship in complex medical dermatology at Harvard Medical School. Today I will be going over some tips on how to structure and detail your CV, and I would like to thank the Derm Club for giving me the opportunity to speak on their platform. I decided to go over my CV as an example, but I'm gonna give you some tips on how to put the headings and what to put in underneath each one of them. And hopefully this will be applicable to everyone. We know that CV is very important, and it's the very first impression that any institution will take of you when you submit your CV to them. And also, if your CV stands out, your chance will be really high to get an interview opportunity. So I'm gonna go over my CV as an example, but it's not the perfect example of how to write a CV, but it gives an idea on how to structure the CV. So you should use a Word document, and the font should be, for example, Times New Roman. It should be a black on a white background. Honestly, fancy font styles and colors could look unprofessional to the committee when you submit your CV. So on the very first top of the CV, you should have your name with the contact information. Now with the name, you can put next to it your titles. For example, if you have a medical degree, master, any board certification, you can add that. And then I usually like to put the date of the last revision, just to give an idea to the committee. For example, when was the last time I updated my CV? You put your contact information, that include your address, email, and your email should really look very professional. Like mine is my first name, last name at Gmail. It shouldn't be like, for example, doctor, best doctor, whatever, or for example, I don't know, like Batman, something. Like it shouldn't be something unprofessional, honestly, because that's important. And then you put your phone number. Putting the marital status, I've seen in a couple of CVs that are coming from Saudi Arabia. I don't know if they've been told to do that in the workshop, but you're not required to put your marital status if you're single or married. And also you're not as well required to put your religion. I actually encourage against putting your religion or your marital status in the contact information. Now, putting the picture is optional, and I've reviewed so many CVs without pictures, which is totally fine. I usually like to put a picture. So the first headings in your CV should be appointments. For some students, it should be actually education, and actually for the majority it's education if you're not actually employed in any institution. But if you're working currently in an institution, so the first section should be appointments or employee, for example, and then you put where you are working right now. And then after that comes the education, and the education is a mandatory component of the CV. And as I mentioned, it's usually the first if you're not employed at the moment. And it includes everything that you've been doing in terms of education that are related to your specialty. For example, right now I'm doing a fellowship, and before the fellowship I was doing my residency. During residency I did master. So you should put them in orders, and make sure that you actually put the latest education as first, and just go in order, with the former ones comes after. Career plan is something I added here. I mean, it's not mandatory, but I just show them, for example, what I'm interested in. And then, for example, the bachelor degree from the medicine. So some students, when they send their CVs, they also put the high school education, which is fine. But, I felt like it's too much for the CV, because the CV should be 2 pages to maximum 5 pages. Mine is a bit longer just because I use this as a reference, but when I submit my CV to any institution, I just look at their guidelines and make sure that it's followed, because it's typically from 2 to maximum 5 pages. And then I put here any electives I've done in dermatology, again, because this is very important for example, for dermatology, residency, and fellowship. But let's say, for example, I did a fellowship in ophthalmology, but you know what, I tried it, I didn't like it, and now I'm interested in dermatology. Should I keep it? I usually advise on removing anything that could distract the committee. For example, if you've done rotation electives in plastic surgery, ENT, and dermatology, which is fine. And then you felt like dermatology is the right career for you. So I usually advise on removing them because that could distract actually the committee when they review your application. And then after that comes the awards section. And then in this section, basically, if you, for example, won any kind of award during med school or during even high school, you could put that. So a big mistake I've noticed in the Saudi CVs that I reviewed is basically they put, for example, I won this award for example, award that we know in Saudi Arabia, but people outside don't know about it. And the other thing, they use abbreviation for hospitals that I know about the hospitals, but some people don't know about the hospitals. So try, if you're submitting your CV to an institution that is outside Saudi Arabia, just be mindful of these tiny things. Like, for example, if you're using an abbreviation that is known for Saudi Arabia, like KFSH, for example, King Faisal Specialist Hospital, I know what is KFSH stands for, and I know where is the hospital, but then you have to actually write it's King Faisal Specialist Hospital. It's located in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So you have to really give details, and this is what I do most of the time. After that comes the courses and workshops. I know in the conferences we do a lot of courses and workshops, and I've done so many, but I've only included the ones that I felt could be relevant to my dermatology residency and fellowship applications, the courses, and then basically the exams. For the exam sections, you don't have to put the scores. You can just put the exams pass or fail, for example. And then we come to a very important section in the CV, which is research experience. So for example, I work as an editor reviewer for a couple of journals. This is not important for you, but you can put the publications. I usually like students to divide their CV into sections under the research big headline. Two publications, anything that was published, and this is my way of like dividing them based on the journals, but you have to write them just, the name of the publications. And very, very, very important. This is another big mistake I noticed in these to the CVs that I reviewed. Honestly, not only in Saudi Arabia, but also in the Canadian applicants, is basically they put the name of the research and their names. They don't put, for example, the journal, the year, the volume. You should state the research as it is written in a Vancouver style reference. Why? Because if I want to put that in PubMed, I'll look up your research and discuss it with you in the interview. I would be able to do so. So make sure that you write the research in the full format, for example, the reference format. And then, for example, if you sent a research that was accepted for publication, but it's not out yet, you can actually put that. And then if I have any ongoing work, I usually put it. And then comes another also important section under the big research experience section, which is conference presentations and abstracts. For example, if you submitted a case report to a conference that is, for example, being accepted as an abstract or an oral presentation or a poster, you should put it and just say, for example, was it a poster or an oral, for example, talk. And then comes the teaching section, but you can also put, like, for example, any extracurricular activities that you've done. But again, anything that you feel it's relevant to the field that you're applying to. Volunteering experience, for example, I did not have any volunteering experiences in dermatology. Others did, like some campaign or like sunscreen protection, or for example, went to shelters and screened people for scabies and other infestations. So these were relevant, but for me, because it didn't have, so I included them. And you could see here, like I'm putting the name of the campaign that I've done, the city, and then our country, Saudi Arabia. Finally, I usually put the languages. I see a lot of students put the languages first, which is fine. And then basically when you put a language, just be very specific and say, if you're fluent in written and spoken, you could say I'm fluent in every language, but without having an evidence of, like, for example, an English proficiency test that can tell, for example, your level. That will be a weak statement. So I usually recommend students, even if it is not one of the requirements, is basically to take some exams and put them. And then finally, the skills, if it is relevant to the field. I hope these advices were useful to you guys, and thank you so much for listening.